It's Wednesday, May the 24th. Lake levels 916 and a half. Water temperature, it's ranging from low 70s to the mid 70s. Depends where you're at on the lake. It actually got a little cooler last week. You know, it cooled down quite a bit. Now it's starting to warm back up. But the lake level, we had a bunch of rain, and it came up. They've got it down now 916 and a half and staying pretty consistent. But when it came up, see, it would have been like Thursday and Friday last week. The water got up in the bushes, and there was a good bite up in the bushes for a few days, but they had the floodgates open, turned around, and sucked the water right out of the bushes. Now, at 916 and a half, there's still a little bit of cover to flip, but, there's good stain up in the river arms. But overall, I think the fishing's really tough. It's been different than what it normally is in the spring. Seems like you got to do a lot of junk fishing. But as far as what I've done, the most consistent the past week, there's still a good shad spawn bite going on. It's really spotty. It actually seems to be better this morning. I was up in Long Creek. Yesterday I was up in the James River. And it seems to me it's better in the river arms than it is in the main lake. You see more shad spawning. But it's really iffy if you get around the right place where you can catch fish on topwater. You can catch some fish on a chatterbait if you see the shad spawning around the docks. My most consistent thing has been a topwater bait. We're still throwing a surge shad or redfin type bait. Walking baits like a spook or a Strike King Sexy Dog are working. Also, like a little pop-ar or splash it, or popping bait will work good as well. But it seems like it's pretty short-lived, and even though you find shad in a lot of places, you don't always get bit. It seems to be a lot of individual fish feeding on the shad, and you about got to hit them on the head when they come up. Now, when that's going on, you can pull some fish off the corners of some deeper docks, a few off of cedar trees, but it seems to be more on the docks and even right up on the bank. The fish have had some of them shad pushed right up on the bank. But other than that early bite, I still haven't got much going offshore, which the majority of the fish are done spawning. Some of them have been done, and I don't think it was a very good spawn. I think when the fish came into spawn, it got cold and it backed some of them out, and then it warmed back up again, which I thought there'd be another big wave, which I never did see. But overall, I don't think it was one of our better spawn years. We'll see. It'll take a couple of years to find out. But, that being said, them fish should be done and should be out in that, getting in that deeper water where you can catch them on a drop shot, even football jig and Carolina rig. I am catching some fish out on the gravel flats, in the mid-lake area. The problem is I'm just not catching a lot of them. I'm catching some on a tube, and I'm throwing a 3.5 inch big bite tube, and the best color for me has been green pumpkin with a little bit of orange. I've got a 1/4 ounce pro swimmer head up inside of there, or you can use a little ball-headed jig, either 3/16 or 1/4. And for the most part, I've been setting the boat in about 25 foot of water, fishing from 15, out to about 20 feet on these long gravel runouts. But like I say, just not a lot of fish out there. The ones I'm catching out there are decent keepers, but they're not really grouped up like they normally would be. You can also throw a Carolina rig in the same spot, or a split shot, even like a wobble head with a zoom speed craw or some type of creature bait, maybe baby brush hog. And I've been throwing a drop shot a lot more this year than I have in previous years. You can fish the drop shot shallow, you can fish it out there real deep vertical, or you can drag it like a Carolina rig. I've been using a drop shot with a 3/16 ounce or 1/4 ounce weight, and I've been using several different worms. Most of the time I'm not wacky rigging it, I'm just nose hooking it, but these are big bite sensations. old mollies. One's a green pumpkin with red flake, and the other one's a purple, kind of a smoke purple. Also catching some on a Strike King. I forgot the name. Dream Shot, and this is a plum color. Another color in the Dream Shot that works well too. I think it's KVD Magic. It's a green pumpkin with a little blue swirl, and like a Zoom finesse worm will also work good too. I've been throwing like a watermelon red or green pumpkin. When the fish were up shallow and they were around beds, I was wacky rigging them, but I find that puts quite a bit of twist in my line when I'm out there dragging it, so I'm pretty much just nose hooking them anywhere from a 3/16 ounce to a quarter. Now on the main lake, I'm finding these fish, 15 to 20 feet. But up in the river arms, we caught a bunch of them yesterday up in the James Shallow, and we caught several today up in Long Creek, and they were probably, sat the boat in 12 to 15 foot. A lot of these fish were, 8 to 10 feet. Now the fish I caught up in the river arms on the drop shot, a lot of small fish, a lot of Kentuckys, a few largemouths, and up in Long Creek there was a few smallmouths, but it was just a way to generate bites, because when you're not getting any bites guiding, you got to do whatever you can do to get people on fish, and that seemed to be the best deal for me. But also catching some fish on a slab spoon, on a 3/4 ounce, like either a slab spoon or like a Dixie jet spoon around these deeper boat docks. There again, it's kind of like the offshore bite. I'm just not finding a lot underneath the docks, and I have to jump around from dock to dock. Really struggling getting any kind of a shallow bite around docks on a jig. Now this past weekend we fished the Anglers in Action tournament deal, and we caught the fish that we weighed. Half of them we caught on a glide bait, on a 7-inch Extreme Outdoors glide bait that Brian Snowden makes, and the other half we caught on a walking bait, on a topwater bait. But it was amazing how many big largemouth, and we fished the mid-lake area. We didn't go very far from Kimberling City, probably Joe Ball to Indian Point. But what amazed me is how many bigger largemouth were up on flat gravel banks around docks. When that water's pretty clear like it is, they'll come out and follow that glide bait, but for about every 8 that follow it out, you might get one that'll bite it. But there is a lot of good quality fish up shallow if a person can figure out how to catch them. We threw a lot of different baits. We threw flukes around them. We threw Cinco, but it seemed like they'd come out and follow that glide bait. Sometimes they'd just come up and eat it. Most of the other times, as the glide bait was coming through the water like this, the bass would be right behind it in the same motion. So I know there's some good quality fish still up there shallow if you figure out how to catch them. But like I say, for the most part, you should be able to go out there in that 25 to 30 foot, and fish should be starting to group up out there on a drop shot where you can vertical fish them. I've checked several spots that I can normally catch them, and it seems like the only thing we're finding out there is bluegill. They're just pecking the heck out of the drop shot worm. They'll bite it in half, or every once in a while you'll catch one, or you might catch a small fish. Should be a lot more numbers of fish out there. Maybe when the water temperature gets a little warmer, there will be. But right now, I think a lot of them fish are still scattered. I haven't been doing much on like a 2.7 or 3.3 swim bait. That bite's kind of gone away for me. It seems like after the shad, it'll work a little bit during the shad spawn. But once them fish start, sun gets up and I start moving out deeper, I'm finding the fish I'm catching are on bottom or related to the bottom. Excuse me. There are some in the conservation brush piles, but you got to fish several of them, and it seems like if you can find them brush piles or rock piles in that 15 to 20 feet, that seems to be the key depth range, whether you try to catch them on a drop shot or like a football jig or a wobble head. That seems to be the best depth for me right now with the brush. And You know, it kind of makes sense that the fish haven't moved out there real deep yet, because the water temperature like it is, there's really no thermocline set up in the lake, so there's no reason for them fish to be out there super deep yet. Maybe once that water gets a little hotter and we start to develop a thermocline, we'll start to see them out there. Now, all last week, you know, when they had floodgates open and a lot of water running, that kind of kept the water temperature down. And also, when you got that much water flow, the thermocline doesn't seem to set up. The thermocline seems to set up when the water starts getting in the high 70s and there's very little water movement, you know, maybe a little generation. But when there's a lot of flow, it seems to break that thermocline up. But, you know, for the most part, the weather's been great. But it was a lot better last week when we had clouds, overcast, and rain. This past week has been pretty bluebird, and I think, especially on the topwater bite and stuff, that's made it a little bit tougher. And even throughout the day, when you're out there trying to fish deeper in the clearer water, a little wind always helps. Now, we had a little bit this afternoon, and the fish seemed to bite a lot better, but we haven't had a whole lot of wind for the most part these last few days. Until next week, good luck, good fishing.